There is one good thing that DC does when making movies, and that's that their animated movies are far better than their live action ones. Reign of the Supermen is the latest animated movie that DC has released, and man, is it a good watch! This movie's plot follows the same comic book story which took place after the Death of Superman comic, where we see 4 different Supermen take up the mantle of the Man of Steel and dish out justice in their own way in attempts to keep the world safe. Now, I'm not much of a DC fan outside of Batman, Green Lantern, and sometimes The Flash, but I found this quite easy to follow along with, and I enjoyed just watching it as a movie and not trying to pick it apart or point out any flaws or spot any recreations from the comic book story. What I do know is that this movie compiles 4 comic issues into one main movie where we see that after Superman sacrificed himself to stop Doomsday, the world is having a super identity crisis and 4 different Supermen attempt to keep justice and order, sometimes leading to them clashing with each other. The 4 Supermen we get are Superboy, who is a clone of Superman. We get the last son of Krypton, or in the movie is called the Eradicator, and this is a Kryptonian defense system that protects Superman. We get Cyborg Superman, who is possibly the closest one we get to actually the original Superman. And then we get my personal favourite, Shaquille O'Steel, which is a Man of Steel with a big hammer. Now, this movie is brand new, right? It came out this year, so I'm not going to spoil the plot, but I will say this. As a comic book fan, but not a dedicated fan who knows all of the lore or backstories that comes with these characters, I enjoyed this movie thoroughly, and at no point did I question why something was happening or who such person was. For example, I know the main bad guy, right? I know who he was as soon as he appeared on screen. I knew their motives and why they wanted to hatch such an evil plot. It isn't rocket science, and that's why I think this movie worked really, really well. There was no shoving of lore down your throat, no inside jokes. You know, it was just, it was a good comic movie that everybody understood, and it didn't have any stupid wokeness that is in movies these days, apart from small jokes about millennials, which was kind of funny. Now, I don't know what it is with animated DC comic movies, but they outshine all live-action movies that DC have done to date. They are far more gripping, have a better grasp on emotional context, and on a whole feel like actual superhero movies instead of the failings like Batman vs Superman. Also, on a quick note, Nathan Fillion as the Green Lantern has always been the perfect casting, and they should really think about eradicating the previous Ryan Reynolds version and make a new one with Nathan Fillion. Seriously, go YouTube Nathan Fillion as Green Lantern and thank me later. On a whole, this movie finds a really good balance between telling the story that the fans all know and love, making sure that anyone new to superheroes or this story can follow along without being confused, and making sure that the ratios of humour, serious storytelling, action and development are perfect. We learn about each of the individual Supermen and who they are, as well as why they are doing what they are doing, and even though other members of the Justice League are in this movie for a short period of time, they aren't spoiled by just being exposition or background flunkies, and they do actually play a pretty decent part in this movie. As far as I could tell from my research into both the stories told in the 4 comics that led after the death of Superman and this movie, it's almost a one-to-one recreation of the comic material that it's taken from. But I will say this, there are obvious changes here and there because they had to take a 4 comic series plus a little bit from the death of Superman and put it into an hour and a half for a movie. So there are bits missing or bits changed. So even though it's basically a one-to-one recreation, you will notice, if you are a really, really big DC fan, some little changes here and there. From watching this movie, I'm actually kind of interested in going out and finding more about the comic series The Death of Superman and each of the individual Superman backstories that came with, you know, all the individual Supermen in this movie. Reign of the Supermen, you have been reviewed, and you truly do hold true to truth, justice, and the comic book way.